All right, so tonight is November 8th, and this is EDTC300. And I just wanted to start just with a couple of talking points here, and then we'll actually talk about the readings, the things that you watched. But I don't know if anyone caught the little gem that was put out on Facebook, and it almost seems like a fake thing. I don't even know. Like, it totally seems like it's not a real thing. But basically, Facebook apparently is asking everybody or people to send in their nude photos so that they can combat revenge porn. So the idea behind it here, and I'll share my screen. The idea behind it is that if you have if you have a picture that you're worried your significant other is going to share, the idea is you send it to Facebook, and then they will, hash the images. So they'll basically put something on their site that prevents anybody from uploading those pictures, right? So if somebody wants to share it on Facebook, they're not able to because they've already got kind of that digital image, and it's like it's blocked from being uploaded again. Yeah, it just seems like a bad plan. Yeah, right. Like, it seems like a terrible idea to me. Anyone have any thoughts on that? Like, the comments on this post were incredible, frankly, because you can imagine it seems totally ridiculous. But I don't know. Anyone feel like they would trust Facebook with their nude photos? Anyone? Because you shouldn't. You definitely shouldn't trust them. Okay, how is everybody not more appalled by this? This is a ridiculous article. It's a ridiculous concept. Yes, we're going to have everyone send us our nude photos. Yeah, like, is that the best choice? Because we know Facebook really sucks at dealing with problems. So I guess they're trying to, I don't know, actually try to do something. But it's just, yeah. Right, Shalene, thank you for that. If someone hacked them and then all of the nudes get leaked, yeah, it's like, yay. It is for real. Yes, it is for real. It is like it's a real thing. This is Facebook basically trying to help no, it's not. It's not a joke. It's Facebook actually trying to combat revenge porn by like preventing those images from being, leaked by people or posted to Facebook. But I mean, it will only protect you if your partner is trying to put it up on Facebook or send it on Facebook Messenger. But yeah, right. Like, it's like Facebook is going to collect all this porn, and then they're just going to be, maybe they're trying to branch into the porn industry. Yeah, Shalene makes a lot of good points. Absolutely. You send your nudes to somebody else so that other people who you don't know can't see them. Yeah, it's I just feel like there really has to be a better way here. Like, there's got to be a better way to I don't know, to prevent that. Anyway, and also I feel like it's like if you've only sent one nude image ever in your life to anyone, and so like, it's like you sent the one and now you regret it, so you're like, I will stop this one from being uploaded. I feel like if you've sent nudes, maybe you've sent more than one, and so it's going to be hard to know which one's going to be posted, so all of a sudden you're going to be sending a whole pile. So yeah, I mean, it just seems like a bad plan to me. But anyway, there's that. That's a real gem. So now that we've had a good laugh about this brilliant plan of Facebook's, I wanted to go back now to the things that you would have watched for this class. So the Amanda Todd story or the Sexed Up Kids. And I want us to just spend a few minutes. I'm going to put you in breakout rooms, and I want you to think about the kind of the concerns that are raised in those videos, whichever one you chose to watch. And I want you to think about, like, as a teacher, what can you do to address things like cyberbullying and teen sexting? So like what is your role in that? What is your role in an increasingly sexualized kind of childhood? What can you do in the classroom? And maybe how, if you watch the Amanda Todd case, what kind of education might have helped that particular issue. So I'm going to put you in some breakout rooms just to have a little chat. So I'm going to put you in, there we go, 5 rooms. And I'll give you about, 7 or so minutes to spend some time discussing. All right. All right. Just got another 30 seconds. Okay, Annie looks so comfy right now. I'm a little jealous. Oh my goodness, and we've got Nicole's baby is along for the class today. I love it. That's awesome. This is why teaching online is kind of amazing, because we have a baby in the class and also we have Annie who's in bed, which is amazing. I'm so jealous. All right, I think we're all back. Yes, excellent. No worries, Nicole. Like this is why we have online class, because people have different needs, and no, you're doing a great job. It's awesome. It's just we're learning, you're introducing your kid really early to the wonders of social media. It's very important. All right. So who would like to share?
Okay, I'll go.
All right.
So we were group 2, and most of us, I think, watched the Sexed Up Kids one. I was saying that as an educator, so what I started with was I'm the mom of 2 boys, and so I feel like my role as a parent is kind of similar in the classroom. Like, I think raising boys to understand that women aren't sexual objects is really like the goal from the beginning, so that as they grow up, it kind of changes as they age. But I was saying, like, we even talk to 7-year-old kids like, oh my gosh, you look so pretty today. Like, that's how we start conversations with little girls. So for me as an educator, it'll be about not genderizing or making the presence of a little girl in my class about the way she looks or the way she moves or that kind of thing. So not genderizing things too much. And then one thing Kira was saying, I think that's how you pronounce your name, sorry if it's not Kira, that I thought was interesting was she said she watched the Sexed Up Kids one, but she didn't watch the Amanda Todd one because she'd seen it in high school in grade 12, in one of her classes. So that I thought that was kind of an interesting, like, full circle moment about an educator who's already trying to do this kinds of awareness stuff in her class.
That's awesome. Kira, what was that, what class was that part of?
That was part of our life trans grade 12 class, like a lot of getting us ready for the outside world, I guess.
Cool. That's awesome. I'm glad to see that that's actually being used in the classroom. Who else wants to share?
I can go.
All right.
I think we were group 5. So we all watched the Sextortion of Amanda Todd. So we kind of talked as future teachers, we would want to try and be a little more proactive and hopefully teach students some of the dangers of online and posting such private photos online before it happens, because I don't know, I think from the video, I kind of got the vibe she didn't have that prior education maybe about the dangers of posting things, which I think would make a difference. And then we kind of started to talk kind of about what boundary and what area do you have? What if a student comes to you and says, oh, I posted a nude photo, someone's blackmailing me. How does a teacher deal with that when it's technically outside of the classroom? And I feel like that's kind of a gray area of how you're supposed to deal with situations like that when it's technically not a school thing, but someone comes to you so you want to help them. So yeah, we kind of started to talk to that, but none of us really had an exact answer of how we would deal with that. And we don't really know until I think you're maybe in that situation, other than we would try and be proactive. I'm sorry, she's a little noisy.
No worries. So I think if you have a case where a student's being blackmailed, then that is an issue where you would want to go to the police. I would go to my principal first. That would be the first stop. But if you do have a case where there are nude photos, particularly if it's somebody who's underage, right, then that's definitely something for the police. Unfortunately, that isn't always going to be an avenue that gets you anywhere, but because sometimes the police really, there's not a whole lot they can do, but that definitely would be like that would be the first stop there, right? Because that's like it is a legal issue, right? So and then I think, I mean, also if you have that kind of situation, that would be a time to talk to your class about that, right? And make sure that they're kind of aware of what's going on, and about like how we react to that. And also I would say, you know, getting in touch with the students' parents if they don't already know, and also making sure that those mental health issues are being dealt with, right? In case that student is struggling in a mental health capacity, that you want to make sure you've connected them to those resources. But I think that is a really important thing to think about, and it's something that is likely to arise in classrooms fairly frequently. Who else wants to share?
I can probably share a bit here.
Yeah.
So we kind of more just went on the topic question, talked a bit about that, and we were referencing Amanda Todd for most of it, but I mentioned a part where you said something about safe sexting last week. And like, as bad and weird as that sounds, it's essentially what we need, because no matter what, if you say no to a high school kid, or even if you say no to a middle year student, they're not going to take no for an answer. They're going to become curious. So we almost need stuff like that, especially in grade 9, to really reaffirm it. But like Emily said, it has to happen in elementary school now, because like in my ECS300 practicum last year, every kid had a cell phone. That, like, as a math teacher, none of them had calculators. They all used their cell phones, and they were texting and Snapchat and everything. So like this has to happen like grade 6, 5 type thing now. And then Tara mentioned something, and I'm forgetting it now, but if she wanted to bring it up, she could.
Yeah, so I kind of tried to push the conversation away from just talking about the victim, and instead bring the conversation to how to be a good bystander. So imagine if Amanda Todd's school, when they got that fake friend Facebook and he posted her photo, if more students said, yeah, so what? What's your point? You shouldn't have done that, and turn the attention towards that person instead of focusing on her. So it kind of goes into teaching good peer support and not being the mob yelling fight, fight, fight in the parking lot. As well as, we always like to think of the person doing this as like the other, but they were all someone's student. So also talking about pushing the consent topic to include posting pictures and videos of other people and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's a really good point, especially the idea of like if you don't you know, you can only blackmail someone with photos if like other people are getting in on it, right? Like if nobody had paid any attention, as you pointed out, like it would be a very different issue. So I do think that is really important, and I think that there are schools that are trying to do that. Just the same as you would do with bullying, right? Like if nobody kind of jumps on the train, then the bully doesn't get very far either. So I think that is really important. And also thinking about, looking at like who's actually posting it and what kind of education are we providing them. So yeah, thank you, Tara. And thank you, Webster. Who is next? I got 2 more groups.
I can speak. So our group had watched Amanda Todd, and we discussed that. Well, first when we saw it, a bunch of us were in elementary or grade 8s, and so we were too young to really understand the extent of what it was. And so we also talked about how she herself was quite young, and she basically started because she wanted to do or make videos of herself singing, what she did, and then she liked posting it, and then she liked the attention, and then along the way she started getting cyberbullied. And the video talks, or her mom talks about how she was not happy with the police response, how it was so long, and the cyberbullying kept happening. And so we thought as educators, we would also hope to educate students so that they know what's appropriate to post and what's not. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So I mean, in the Amanda Todd case, definitely like she was posting, right? She was sharing her music. And interestingly, a lot of what's gone on around that case is like, there's a lot of blaming of her mother, right? And her, like basically in a lot of these cases, there's a lot of blame put on the parents. And like in a bad way, like in a really kind of over the top way. So Carol Todd, you know, she's been the victim of like basically bullies who then came and like are going after her and are like threatening her and saying she's a terrible parent. So there's that other layer too, right? But it's important to know, like, she actually, you know, she knew that her daughter was on there and was, you know, posting things, and that wasn't the issue, right? And I think it's important to remember that, right? That like, she made a mistake by flashing the people online, but you know, it's not, we can't blame her for just being online and like wanting to perform for people and share with people. So I think that's important to remember. One more group who wants to share.
I can share for our group.
Thank you, Giselle.
Well, basically, we talked about Amanda Todd. The video, like for me, and I guess like a lot of us in this class, was introduced to us in elementary or high school. It went viral during that time too, so it was something that like our schools thought it was informative to share, and it was. And we basically said the same things, like we need to teach them like what's appropriate, like what's public and what's private, like what you're allowed to share, and how all we can really offer as educators is to make sure that we're very supportive of them. Like making sure that they're comfortable in their environment and letting them know like it's okay and we're here to help you, basically.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that is also really important, right? The idea that kids need to feel like they can come to you if there's an issue. So yeah, and I'm really happy to hear that it's being used, that like that's the video and kind of the cases being discussed, because I think we do need those like real life examples. I also wanted to just say, and I'll pop the link in the chat, but so there was actually an article that I saw yesterday, and apparently there is some new data that suggests that actually teenagers aren't sexting as much as we thought, which is good news. But the problem is, like, they have this perception that everyone around them is sexting. So, you know, it says like 90% of teenagers think that most of their peers are sexting, but it turns out it's only 1 in 20 who are actually doing it, right? And so you've got this perception that, like, oh, everyone's doing it, so I need to do it too. And I think that's the really big issue here, is that people then feel like they should do it because of what their peers are doing. So that was some really interesting data. And I think it's important to think about that, right? That you know, we need to make sure that kids understand that this isn't something that everyone's doing as well, because I think that then kind of changes the whole story. So just wanted to note that because I thought that was interesting and also relevant. Yeah, and it's it is that illusion, right? Like, it's crazy to think, you know, 5% are actually doing it, but 90% think that everyone around them is doing it. Like, that's crazy. That's some really that's a really interesting contrast there. And so we need to think about peer pressure, right? Like, that's exactly right. We need to think about, you know, what kind of skills are we giving our students to make sure that they are informed and they're not going to be kind of victims of peer pressure. So that's, you know, hopefully some stuff to think about. And I think those documentaries are really useful, and also definitely, like, if you're working with, you know, older grades, using that Amanda Todd documentary, I think is a great idea in the classroom, as long as it's presented in kind of in an appropriate way. But so now what I want to do is I actually want to totally shift gears and take a look at some assessment tools. Okay, so there are like a gazillion assessment tools, formative assessment tools out there, and I want to show you some of them. So just before we start, can somebody tell me what formative assessment is? Tests, maybe. What's formative assessment? Okay. So we would make a distinction between formative assessment and summative assessment, right? So a summative assessment would be that final thing, right? The final assessment that basically is maybe what we base grades on. And then on the other end of it, we've got kind of the formative assessment that happens throughout, right? So throughout instruction, you're looking for feedback on where your students are at, so you can actually like target the issues that they're having. Oh, no worries. Formal, that would be right. Webster, if we had meant formal, then absolutely yes. So standardized tests would be more like, they would be a formative thing, or sorry, a summative thing. But so this is like, you know, things like exit slips or like mini quizzes in between that aren't necessarily being used for grades, but instead are being used so that you can tailor your instruction. And there's all kinds of really awesome, powerful tools. And I think one of the benefits of technology is, in fact, that it really does allow you to get really quick like feedback on how your students are doing, right? And so it's a great way to kind of really quickly gather some information so that you know how well people are doing, who understands what, and like what you might need to reteach. So what are some formative assessment tools that you've seen in the classroom? Kahoot, yeah. And everybody loves Kahoot. What else? Socrative, yeah. What else? Poll everywhere. Yep. And we've reached the end of the list. Okay, so I'm going to show you some, and I'm going to show you Kahoot and Socrative because I am assuming not everyone has done them. But I'm going to show you kind of a collection of different tools. So I'm going to start actually with Socrative. So what I need all of you to do is you're going to need to go to socrative.com. And then you're going to go to the student login. And you don't need to like register or anything, but you do need to put the room in, and I'm going to put the room. So the room is just my first initial and last name. And I'm going to show you, while that's happening, I will pull up my browser and I will show you from my end. So, okay. So Socrative is, I guess, one of the, it's a pretty, like, it's free, okay? It's a free thing. It's a pretty good tool. I find it to be more useful than Kahoot in a lot of ways because it actually allows, it's not as rushed. Kahoot sometimes can be a stressful activity, I find, but Socrative provides you a much wider range of data and a lot more kind of detail in how your students are doing. So if you go on there, I'm going to show you a quiz. And if you're one of the people in my 110, you'll have seen some of these questions, but it's slightly different. And I'm just going to use a treaty ed quiz because, it's always fun to see what we know about treaty education, but don't panic if you don't know stuff. But so I am going to, I'm going to start the quiz. And it looks like 18 of you are in the room at this point. And we're gonna go through it so you can see what this is like, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it. So from my end, again, all I have to do is launch a quiz, and this is a free account that I have, right? So it's I'm not paying for anything on this. And on my end as well, I need to choose some delivery methods, right? So I have to decide if I want instant feedback, open navigation, or teacher paced. So I'm going to say, instant feedback is good so that you can see if you got something right or not. And I'm going to require names. I'm going to show the question feedback, and I'll show final scores as well. So I'm going to start the quiz. So again, the room is that thing that I typed in there, K. Hildebrandt. All in capitals. So basically I can see everyone getting on now, right? And so it's pretty easy to get to, right? From if you have students, they don't need to create an account or anything. And basically, they just put their name in, and then they can go through, you can go through the quiz. And there are a lot of options in terms of how you want to pace things, as you saw, and how you want the quiz to operate in terms of giving students feedback or not. So you can see that I am able to see how people are doing. I'm able to kind of look at, how everyone's doing. I can see everyone's stuff at the same time, which is kind of nice. And so I kind of get to watch everyone doing this, and I can also see what % do what. So I know that for the first question, everyone got it right. So that's as a teacher, that's good data for me because I know that's not something I need to be reteaching, right? I know that 95% got the second one right, and now we start having some issues, right? So in the third question, I've got 63% are correct. So all of a sudden I know something's maybe going wrong here. So it's pretty good data. I'm just going to give you some time to finish the quiz. And then we'll talk a little bit about it. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. And so again, I can keep the quiz open as long as I want, but I can also finish it if I don't want to let people do it anymore. So I have that ability from my end. And I can see how everyone's doing. So I can see Luke is done, right? I've got people who are at 90%, right, 80%. Bruce Wayne is not having a good go of it, only at 30% finished. So again, I can kind of see where everyone's at. So I'm going to give you another minute to finish up. Look at that. Treaty Ed Camp paid off. Look at you, Jesse, 100%. Nice. Kendall. Kendall's done. Kira's done. Excellent. All right. So what's cool now is once I'm ready to end the quiz, I just hit finish. So if you're not done, sorry. But then I actually get reports, which is also super cool. So I can get a spreadsheet with the whole class, right? I can get a PDF for each student, right? So I can see how everyone did on which question, or I can look at a particular question and see how people are doing. And I can decide, how I want to actually get my reports. So I get a lot of data from this. So thoughts about this particular tool. What do we think? What's good? What's bad? What do we like about it? And what do we not like? Also, I'm glad to hear that Kendall and Jesse have improved. Very nice. It isn't a competition. Yeah, that's really, I mean, I think that can be good or bad. But I think for some people who have anxiety, the competition aspect isn't always great. For some, it's good. Is there a question bank? Yeah, so you can actually see, you can share quizzes with people. And so you can create your own too, right? So I've got all of these quizzes, and I can basically, I can copy different ones. I can, if I want to make, if I want to kind of edit one of the quizzes, I can merge different quizzes. So I have a lot of kind of freedom on this end. And you can also add, you can share with other people, which I really like. So I think, so I think you've pulled out a lot of the good things, right? It's organized. We get feedback right away. I'm able to see how people are doing on what. I'm able to kind of, get that feedback right away. It's free. I like that you don't have to sign in. Do you have to create each? No, so you can borrow questions from different places. Yes, absolutely. So you don't have to create each question every time. It's okay. And so Kendall, I think, it's not a super fun activity, right? It's like, this is a quiz. It seems like a quiz, and it's not like there's no kind of flashy music or stuff like that. It can absolutely work like a paperless exit slip, right? Like it's easy to use in that way. And unlike an exit slip that you have to go through and actually grade, this does it kind of for you. So this one, I think it's a great tool. And I love kind of the reports and the results that you can get. And I love that it's free. So, but that's one option, right? And so that's kind of, something that I would suggest you might want to try out in the classroom. So that is Socrative. And if you look at the weekly plans, everything is in there, right? Poll Everywhere is another one. I'm not going to show you Poll Everywhere because I personally think that Mentimeter, which we've used in here, is a better tool. Poll Everywhere used to be the best one in terms of kind of people could text in their answers. And certainly it still works. But I find that Mentimeter is easier. It's a lot smoother in terms of kind of rolling it out, and people have less of an issue, because sometimes with Pull Everywhere, people have issues with like their texts don't go through or they text the wrong thing, and but that is definitely an option. So Mentimeter we've seen. So the next one I want to show you is Kahoot. So how many of you have used Kahoot before? All right, so most people have. This is like everyone's favorite tool. I personally find it super stressful, but we'll take a look at some Kahoot. So Kahoot is, it's another kind of assessment tool, but it definitely has more of the competitive aspect. So we're gonna do a little Canada quiz on Kahoot, and you can do teams versus, or you can do like one-on-one. And I'm gonna do classic. And basically, if I am doing this with a class, this is going to pop up. Oh God, it's the sketchy music. So if you are a student here, basically what you need to do is look at the screen, kahoot.it, and to get on, and then you put in that game pin, 756220. The music is like, the music stresses me out. So people are getting on. This is good. This is good. You can see right away that people can put in whatever they want, right? Like you can put in any name you want. And it seems a lot more like easygoing than Socrative. I feel like people are more likely to put in the weird names here. I think maybe even just because of the whole vibe of it. But as a teacher, I'm allowed to click on a name that I don't like, and then I kick that person out right away. So you have that option, right? Yeah, it is meant to be informal and fun, but I do feel like, there's the potential for people to put really inappropriate names in there. But again, at least you have the option to kick people out, which I like. So waiting on just a few other people, and then we'll get going. Now, the thing about Kahoot that I think is important to know is that you have to be watching both the instructor screen and your own screen, right? Because basically the question's going to be on my screen, but you have to answer on yours. And so you don't have all of the options on your screen. You actually have to be looking at both. And so you'll see how that is as we go through. So I've got 5 questions here. Again, if you didn't get in already, the game pin is at the bottom. But so here we go. What is Canada's national animal? And you've got some options here. So again, if you think the answer is polar bear, you would click the red thing on your screen. But so you have to, as you can see, you have to do both. Jesse, that's, yeah, some people can definitely ruin Kahoot. Okay, so congratulations. Most of us are aware that the beaver is the national animal. I'm concerned that someone thought it was a penguin. Penguins don't live in Canada, but maybe somebody thought they were hilarious. So there is the leaderboard here, right? And the other thing about Kahoot is it rewards speed. So, you get a certain number of points for being right, but you also get points for being quick. And so for people who take a little bit long to process things, or maybe just aren't as like speedy on things, that can be really, really, really stressful. So Batman is in the lead. Let's go to the next question. All right. So Justin Trudeau, well done. We all knew it. Excellent. See, Emily, it is stressful. Exactly. Totally stressful. All right. Let's go. Let's see how we're doing. Batman retains his lead or her lead. I don't know who's Batman. Let's go. Which of the following is an actual Canadian holiday? Ha, this is where it gets tricky. All right, so bit of a wide variety of answers here. Yes, Islander Day is in fact an actual Canadian holiday, but shout out to everyone who chose Maple Syrup Day, because I mean that would be a great day to have. It's just that we don't have it. So let's see how we're doing now. Oh, Batman is really on top of stuff, but Rebecca has now jumped into second place. All right. We've got 2 more questions, I think. Yep. What's the capital? This one's a gimme. You know this one. It worries me that it's a hard one for some people, clearly. So not good. Oh, boy. Okay, seriously, who picked Toronto? Come on now. All right, so yes, indeed, Ottawa is the capital of Canada. If you didn't know that, then I'm a bit concerned. But all right, Batman again retains his lead. Kyle has now jumped into second place. Now, here we go. You know, right? Who's Batman? All right, and this is a very Saskatchewan one for you. All right. Sadly, it's not a moose blanket, but I wish it were, because that would be amazing. Really, like, I'm going to go put on my moose blanket. I love it. I love it. All right. So, yes, it is a bunny hug. So let's see. Oh, Batman is in first place. We've got Kyle in second and Rebecca in third. Well done to the 3 of you. And then we can look at, I can also see my results, right? I can download them and all of that, and see how people are doing. So thoughts about this one? What are the benefits of Kahoot, and maybe the drawbacks, if we see drawbacks? Yeah, super competitive for sure. And let's see, if I show feedback, yeah, it doesn't give me the same like super super data that you get with the other, with something like Socrative. I like that you can rate kind of your how you like Kahoot. So it's more, yeah, it's a lot more exciting, I think, for the students, for sure. Like, it's something that you would be excited about doing, and it's very like visually nice for sure. But it's definitely not as much for the teacher, right? Like, you get a little bit of feedback, and so you can use it for sure. You can use it in a lecture to kind of, you know, to make sure everyone's on the same page at the end. But it's not as useful in terms of the data. But it's also like something really quick, right? It's a fun activity that you can do, you know, with students, and it doesn't require a lot of work to do. Does anyone know though why you have to look at both the screen and like the screen of the presenter and your own screen? So it's basically, this is developed by some Scandinavian researchers, and I think Emily is probably the closest there. Basically, they determined that if everything pops up on your screen, like on the student screen, then basically the students kind of are in their own little world and they don't engage as much. Whereas if they have to look up and then down at their screen, they found that students were a lot more engaged with the class. And so that's actually why it's done that way. So there is a reason for it, which I found interesting. It made me less angry about that whole thing where you have to look up and down. But it is like, it's tricky, right? And like, until you're used to it, you're like, why am I looking in two places at once? This is stressful. But so yeah, there's actually a reason for it. And so if you're doing it in a class, and you have like the whiteboard, then that, it makes it a lot easier. It's harder to do it online, and then, you have to be looking at two things at once. That's definitely trickier, unless you're using like a secondary device. So yeah, I mean, I think there are benefits to this one, drawbacks as well, but, if you use it, in the right setting, then I think it can be a good tool as well. The next one, and I'm not going to show you because it would not be possible, but has anyone used Plickers before? And I'll show you what Plickers looks like. So anyone with Plickers? So Plickers is really interesting and pretty cool. Basically, and you can kind of see this in the background, the idea with Plickers is it's for a class where you don't have a bunch of technology, because all you need is you need the teacher to have a phone or a tablet, and nobody else needs to have anything. And so basically what it does is you've got these pieces of paper that you can kind of see, and they've got this like black square on it, and each one is kind of a unique identifier, right? So every student gets their own paper, and basically what you do is you ask a question, right? And then the students hold up their page with a certain, basically like orienting it in a certain way depending on what their answer is. So like if their answer is A, then they flip the page a certain way. If it's B, they flip it a certain way. And so basically they respond by holding up the paper. And then what you do is you take your phone, you actually scan the room, and then it will pick up how students did. So it works as a response tool, but all you need are these pieces of paper. Does that make sense? It's kind of an odd concept, but it actually works. I've seen it used. It's pretty cool. And it's not super complicated because the app does everything for you. It's just, it's kind of hard to imagine how it works. But basically it's just the students have these 4 directions they can hold their paper, right? And then the phone looks at it and basically can tell, how it's oriented. So it is like, it's a cool tool for sure. And what's nice about it is like each of those papers has a number attached to it. So you can actually have, like you can assign to your students that they always have the same paper. And that way you'll actually know who answered what, right? Like if you just pass out all the papers randomly, you're not really going to have a sense of who answered correctly and who didn't. But if you know, like paper number, like the card number 14 belongs to, Tara, then I know that when I look at my results, I can see if Tara did it correctly or not. So that's kind of neat, right? But it's also totally, it's totally anonymous, right? Because nobody knows how you've oriented your card. And yeah, each one is unique. Yeah, exactly. So there are up to 64, I think. You can print 64 of them and they're all different. And so who's doing what. But again, the students don't know because they don't know, like they can't tell what's going on with the paper because they're seeing it from the back, and they also have no idea which side means what because it's like a weird random paper. Yeah, you just print them. It's free. You go to plickers.com and you can print these things off. And then you just hand them out to students. So it's cool because it's free, right? And all you need is the free app, and then you print off these papers, and then you can record, right, and figure out who you've given each one to. The only one of the drawbacks I found is that if you laminate them, then they obviously last longer, but they don't always scan properly if you've laminated them because of the glare on them. So it would be helpful to like print them on cardstock if you were planning to use it. But it does give you lots of data, which is pretty awesome, right? And there's no, like, it's not a competitive thing, but it gives you the data on who did what, and how, you know, how particular students are doing, but also kind of overall which questions are hard for students or which ones do you maybe need to reteach. So again, that's a pretty, like, it's a pretty cool concept. And for a class where like you don't have a ton of technology, or, you know, students maybe don't have devices, this is a really easy way to get feedback. And again, I've seen it used very successfully. Do I know where the company makes their money? Well, I don't, but I'm sure we could figure it out. That is a good question, right? So all of these things, you know, I wonder though if there are in-app purchases, like you can do extra stuff, or there are ads, right? That would be the other option. So it may also be if you want more than 64 cards, that may be something you can pay for. But I assume there's something that you can do as add-ons or whatever. But I do think that's also a really important question to ask with anything that you're doing in the classroom. Like if it's an educational app, how are they making money? Because there aren't a lot of, like, you know, just wonderfully kind-hearted companies out there that are like, we're just doing this for the kids, you know? It's probably not the case. So definitely something to keep in mind. Okay, so that's Plickers. I want to show you a couple more. So one I want to show you is Pear Deck. So Pear Deck is, it's a Google product, and it's like, it's really cool, but nobody seems to have heard of it. So basically how Pear Deck works is you create like a slide group, a collection of slides, and there are a bunch of different kinds of responses you can do. And then students can go on and they join your slide deck, and then they get a copy of it on their own device, right? So I'll show you what that looks like. I'm gonna do my demo one. So I'm gonna present this one. So basically, in order to join this one, all you have to do is you go to peardeck.com/join. Great, okay, I see it, great. You go to peardeck.com/join, which I'll write in here, and then you put in this particular code, ODXNW. So again, you need to go to peardeck.com/join, and then the code is ODXNW. And actually, like, they always make some ridiculous like sentence with it. Oh yeah, and you do need to be in a Google account, because again, it's a Google product. And that also allows the teacher to see who's doing what. So, sorry, I just assume everyone's logged into Google all the time, because I am. So I've got 3 people. So just head on in there and join up. So again, I can see how many people have joined, which is nice. And I know who they are because you've logged in with your Google. So I'll give you another few seconds to get on there. Is anyone having issues with it? Or are we good? All right, so you can still join, but I'm gonna get started just so that we can start to see what this looks like. Okay, so here I go. I'm gonna start with this question. So basically with this, you should have this on your own screen, and basically it's like, where do you fall with respect to your internet use? And what you can do is you can actually take those, the little markers, so red for Facebook, green for Twitter, and blue for Instagram, and whatever the other one is, I can't tell on my screen. Purple for blogging, and then you can drag them into the appropriate quadrant here. And then what I can see on my end is I can actually see, and this part's really cool, you can see where people are dragging things, right? So visitor versus resident, think about like, do you feel comfortable like you're at home, or do you feel like you're still visiting that space, like it's kind of new to you? And this is that kind of, so there used to be digital natives versus digital immigrants. That was, somebody came up with those terms. And so the idea was like kids were digital natives, but somebody, there are people who said like, maybe we don't use those words, and they changed it to resident versus visitor to kind of to show that, you know, just because you're young doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a digital native. And so they wanted to kind of show that maybe like you can just become a resident after a while, right? And it has more to do with like the extent to which you use things. So that's it's kind of nice. I can see all of everybody's responses. I can also see individual responses if I want, but I greatly enjoy the collection. And, you know, it's interesting to see like blogging is a very professional thing, whereas Facebook is a very personal thing. And I can see kind of that, the difference there, which I think is interesting. So then I've got agree or disagree. I think we should get rid of grades altogether. And again, I can look at people's responses and I can see where people have created their marks, which is kind of hilarious. So got a lot of disagrees. I don't know what's happening with this one. It's a little crazy. Man, we are, we got a fully agree over here. This is new. So that's kind of cool. Again, I can see kind of where everyone's at with their responses. And you can kind of see on a continuum. So I like that. Oh, state. Whoa, geez, what happened down here? That's terrifying. And also I can see, if I want to see kind of everyone's overlaid, I can do like this. And then I can look at kind of the overall responses by seeing everything together, which is kind of cool, I think. So let's check out the next one. I like this one. Create a mind map of your understanding of formative assessment. Go for it. I don't know how you're going to do it, but it's going to be awesome. And then we get to look. And I have options, right? I can see a grid. I know nothing. What? Question mark. Here we've got the shrugging face, the shrugging emoji, sunshine. So again, I get to see everybody's responses, which I think is kind of cool. Then if I look at the next question, so where do I feel that my technology integration falls on the SAMR model? And this one here, you get to slide that bar, which I think is cool. So I can see how everyone's feeling, or I can look at, again, individual people and see where everyone's at like that. So that's kind of a neat response system. So we can see kind of there's a big, I guess, group of people in the modification area. We can see kind of the average person is there. And let's take this one. Oh, what number am I thinking about right now? This one is very important. And I can see everyone's responses. And of course, somebody picked something in the 4-digit range, which makes it particularly awesome. So again, I can see everyone's responses, you know, 3, 4, 7. Okay, obviously I was thinking of the number 17, so I don't know what's up with the rest of you, but clearly that was the right answer. So again, I can have like individual choices. What? Yeah, obviously. But props to whoever put pi in there. I like that. That's nice. So those are kind of the different options in terms of different types of assessment. Yeah, also avogadros. I like A, that somebody put it there, and B, that somebody identified it. So, and then at the end, I can just end my session, and then I actually, I can basically, I can look at everyone's responses afterwards. So thoughts on this one? What do we think? pretty awesome. It is pretty awesome. I do enjoy it. It is, yeah, it's very different. I do like the different options in terms of how you respond. I think that's really cool on this one. And also, yeah, the ability to visualize the data is pretty cool. Yeah, it's actually quite easy to set up. So, you know, if you go to new, you just do like new slide deck. And then basically it'll give you the different options for what kind of slides you want to make. And I don't like, it's totally not so you can bring in PowerPoint, by the way, or like another presentation, or you can make your own slides through here. And so you get to add a slide, you get to choose like what kind of things you want on there. And then, you know, you create, so you can do like drag a dot, you can do drag a line. It says that things are premium, but I've found if you just tell them that you're an educator and you want to try it out, they seem to give you access to the premium, and then you just keep telling them that over and over again, and then that's how you keep your premium account. So I haven't actually paid for this, but yeah, it's pretty awesome. So there are some options that are free, obviously, but as you saw, I used these options and again, didn't pay for it. So much fraud, obviously. Yeah, clearly, you're like, yeah, totally, I'm using it with my students, and you know, they're gonna be teachers, and so obviously we want everyone to check it out so they can all buy the premium version. Yeah, so there's the answer there. Always just like claim things like that to get your free stuff. Okay, so that's Pear Deck. Pretty neat, I think. And again, it's one that like I haven't seen much, and maybe that's because people don't know that you can get the premium options by just saying the right thing. But yeah, I think it's a cool one, and it's nice that everyone gets their own copy of the slides so they can see them as well. So that's Pear Deck. And then the other one I want to show you is, hang on, right, one sec. The other one, okay, so a couple more. There's FreshGrade is a portfolio site. I'm not going to show it to you, but what's cool about FreshGrade is it's free, but also it stores data in Canada. So it's a Canadian company, and that one, for some school districts, like it's very important that you're storing student data in Canada, and so that's why that one is a good option for some people. So FreshGrade is similar to the one that I'm going to show you, which is Seesaw. It's very, very similar to Seesaw. So we're going to look at Seesaw quickly. Has anyone used this? So Seesaw is definitely being used in classrooms. It's got the teacher, there's the teacher app, there's the student app, and then there's the parent app. So we're going to take a look. We'll go and play for a minute. So if you go to web.seesaw.me, then I'm going to log in there, and then we're going to be able to check some things out. So again, that's web.seesaw.me. And of course, there is there's an app, but you can go through the web. And make sure that you choose I'm a student. So Seesaw. So if I go into Seesaw, I can log in. So again, this one's free. I don't really do anything that's not free because I don't like paying for stuff. If you want like if your whole school is going to use it, you can get like you can pay for that. But otherwise, you can just use it for free as an educator. Come on Google here. All right. So you go on, and great, there's new stuff. I don't care. Stop telling me that. Okay, so you go on, and basically you can create a class. So what I can do on here, as you know, this is my teacher account or whatever, I can basically create a class, and then I'm going to allow all of you to go in and join. So I'm going to create a class, and I get to choose grade level, whatever. It's called EDTC300. Oh, actually, sorry, I lied. We're going to go into the sample class. So basically what I've done on here is if you go into the sample class, and I'll get you the code in a second, basically you just have to choose, you have to choose one of the names that's already on there. And hang on. Okay, let's see. Okay. So I can add people by scanning, or I can give a code. So I've got a few options. So if you, wait, nope, you're accessing, sorry. Okay, for some reason it's changed everything on me, which is why it's taking me a moment. Okay. So basically, sorry, this is excellence. This is not the same as it was, like, I don't know, last week. So just bear with me. Here we go, class settings. Okay. So basically you have to like create, like you have to upload your student names. Like you can't just have students come on because it's for primary people. So so it's, you don't, like students don't create accounts themselves. So what you can do is you can go into Seesaw and again, choose student, and then you put in this code. So DHGVFV, I'm gonna throw it down here. Sorry, I always have a hard time figuring out how to actually get the code, no matter how frequently I do it. So the code is only good for an hour, and then you can get a new one, but basically that's kind of the purpose there, is so that you don't get weirdos in your class. But so basically you're gonna go on, and then you can choose any of the names there. So there should be like 100 different name choices. So just go on and choose any of the existing names, and like claim it for yourself, and then you can be in the class, and then you'll be able to see what you can do. So are we able to get on? Yep, okay, and make sure you choose I'm a student. So the code is in there, so I'm gonna close it for right now. And so what I can do then is basically what you can do is you can add things to a student's portfolio, or they can add things themselves. So the idea is that you're documenting student work on here. So for instance, somebody has come on as Clarence Caballero, and they have figured out how to make a post. Nice. So it's really easy to add stuff for students, right? As you can kind of see. And basically in my journal, I can see everybody's posts, right? Which is neat. But then the other thing is I can post to students' journals, right? So if I want to create a note, you know, I can create this note and say like, Johnny was very good in class today, whatever. Normally it would be a picture of Johnny's work or whatever, but this works too. And so what I can do is I can actually then go and assign it to somebody's journal, which is kind of neat. See? Oh wait, nope, I don't want to delete and start over. And then I get to choose which student I put it on. So I'm gonna choose Angelica, and then basically it posts to Angelica's journal. So you've got options, right? I can have students posting their own stuff, right? So if a student does something in class, they can take a picture of it and post to their own portfolio, or I can post for them. So what's cool about this, so one is I can look at a student's portfolio, right? And then I can like see all of their work, which is kind of neat. So that's one kind of cool thing, right? And the other thing is, so if I go, for instance, to one student's journal, right, I can see everything that's on there. Other things that are neat is parents can then access their kids' journals as well, right? So they can see what their kids have been posting. So it's an easy way to share kind of with parents, and to have parents be able to like check out what their kids have been doing in class. I can also, if a student puts something up, I can like it, I can comment on it, I can organize it in a particular folder, and I can also, delete it if it's something inappropriate or whatever. But it's kind of nice to be able to like, you can kind of look through and give feedback to your students based on what they've posted. So it's basically a way of students documenting their work, which is kind of neat. And again, really easy for like kids to use, right? We've got this giant smiley face. Excellent. So thoughts on this one? Yeah, so you can have students look at each other's. There are a bunch of settings, right? So if I look at my class settings, I have the option, right? I can say students can see each other's work. So right now it's set like that. I can say like, can we edit things? I can decide if new items need an approval. Students are able to like each other's work. Yeah, and their posts save, right? Like everything saves. And so you can use it throughout the year to create like a portfolio of the students' work. And Jesse, I will note the app is a lot easier to use than the web interface. So I don't know if that would solve your issues. I do find like the web interface to be hard to navigate, which is kind of obnoxious. Like it's hard to get to things and it's not really very intuitive, but yeah, I totally agree. But the app version is really good. And I really like that you can have families on there as well, right? And so, you can, the parent can see like, oh, this person just went in and, posted a video of something that they created in class today, and now I get to see it. Yeah, and it is really, like, it's easy when you have, when you do have the app. So I've seen kids like in kindergarten who are using it because it's really easy to take a picture and then post it. Yeah, it's not bad. So any other thoughts on this one? There's also there's the class blog that you can enable. So there are a bunch of options in terms of what you can actually do on here. All right, so this is another option. I'm going to show you one more. We're not going to, next week I'll show you Google Classroom because we don't have time to actually get to it, but we will go really quickly. So the last one I wanted to show you is just EduBlogs. So how many people have used EduBlogs or have seen it before? Okay, so EduBlogs is free, right? It's to get a pro account, you have to pay a bit, but you can get a free one. And if you ever want to use this with a class, I know the person who runs the support for EduBlogs, and she'll give you, I think, like a free year if you just go through me, and then I can contact that person. So she kind of has offered that because we talk about it in classes. But so basically EduBlogs it works on a WordPress platform, which makes it really easy to deal with because you will already know what everything looks like. But you can make your own account, and then you can make student blogs underneath that. So if you remember, we looked at Kathy Cassidy's site, or we looked at, people sleuthed her for the cyber sleuthing exercise. So she's somebody who uses EduBlogs really well. So I will show you what that looks like. So basically, I need to find the one that's on there. Basically, if you look at, I think it's Mrs. Cassidy's class, Yeah, Mrs. Cassidy's class. Essentially, as the teacher, you set up the blogs for your students. And then they all have their own little blog that's connected to the teacher blog. So this is Kathy Cassidy's class, right? She's got 6-year-olds doing this. And if you look down the side, you can see all of her students' blogs. So this whole little list of people, that's everyone's individual blog. So if I go, for instance, to Lucy's blog, I can see what Lucy has been doing in class, right? And so Lucy can post things. Lucy can make add videos to her blog. So she's got like pictures of or videos of baby pheasants. She's got some pancake stuff. She's got here's what she made with her paint and tape design. So it's a way of documenting students' work, and they can also be blogging. Obviously, like they can write stuff depending on their age, but basically, it's really easy because you have control over everyone's blog. So as the teacher, you set up the blogs with the student names, and then you can, depending on the settings you want to use, you can make it private so only the class can see. You can make it so that parents can log on and see, or you can just make it open, which is what she's done here. And you get to kind of have an overview of what students are doing. So you could make it so that you have to okay their posts, you have to okay their comments, depending on how much you want to do. This is not how I created the class blog hub. That is done through a paid WordPress account. But if I were working with kids, this is definitely what I would do. The difference is that you all have your own sites and you just gave them to me. Whereas this, like the teacher actually creates everything kind of from the top down. And what's cool about this, I mean, there are a couple things that are really cool. So one is obviously you get to control the level of kind of openness of their blogs. So, you know, if you're working with first grade class, maybe you want to keep things like private, but maybe, you know, as you go on, you want to open things up maybe to parents and then maybe to, you know, other people in the school, and then maybe just make it public, right, as you go along. Another thing that's cool is you can take student blogs and transfer them to another teacher. So, you know, these kids are making their portfolios for grade 1. If they get to grade 2 and the grade 2 teacher also wants to use this, you can transfer it over to them, and that way you have a record, right, of how the kid is doing, right? You can see potentially their journey from kindergarten all the way through grade 12 if you keep passing it on. The other thing you can do is you can actually export student blogs. So if, you know, Aaron here at some point decides Aaron wants his own blog, he can actually export all of his content and then create just a regular, like a regular site that's owned by him, right? So there's a lot of options for how you can build e-portfolios and then have them be something that grows with the student. So questions or thoughts on this? Yeah, I like the transfer thing as well. Yeah, it is. I think it's cool. Another one you can look at. Let's see, Madame Kruger. So this is a teacher who also uses this. I think this is her account. Let's check it out. Yeah. Okay. So here's Claire Kruger. And so you can see again, this is her all of her students' blogs. And again, you've got like the overall class blog, but also the individual student blogs. So here are actually students who are posting stuff, right? Who are actually writing things. And so you've actually got then, which is kind of cool, like an overview of that student's learning throughout the year. Yeah, so you can make the student blogs private. These two teachers just happen to make them public, which is why we get to look at them. But yeah, you can decide there are various levels of privacy, right? So you can make them totally private. You can make them so that the class can see each other's. You can make them so parents can see them, like where people can log on. You can make it so the school community can see, or you can make it totally public, right? So there's tons of options. And what I think is great is that it works on the same platform as WordPress. So if you know how to use WordPress, you also are able to use EduBlogs without any real issues. There's another one called Kid Blogs. I just find this one a lot easier, but that one is also free. And I do think, like, in terms of, sharing what's going on with families, this one is also, like, it's a really nice idea. And it's kind of like Seesaw is good for kind of individual students and sharing that with parents. But I find this one is it gives you a bit better kind of overview of what the class is doing, and that I like as well. So it's a different kind of option. So those are some different formative assessment tools and kind of portfolio tools. So lots of new things to play with. Next week, we will look quickly at Google Classroom, and then we'll talk about some digital literacy and some coding even. But for now, I think we're pretty much done for this evening. So hopefully you learned about something new, at least one new thing, since, hopefully you hadn't heard of every single one of those. Yeah, I hope you spend some time exploring. You've got some articles to read for this week around fake news, which I think are really interesting. And with that, I will say good night, and I'm going to